Isaiah, chapter 5, beginning with verse 1. Let me sing for my beloved, my love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He dug it and cleared it of stones and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it and hewed out a wine vat in it, and he expected it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. And now, inhabitants of Jerusalem and people of Judah, judge between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I have not done in it? When I expected it to yield grapes, why did it yield wild grapes? And now I tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove the hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or mown, and it shall be overgrown with briars and thorns, and I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the people of Judah are his pleasant planting. He expected justice, but saw bloodshed, righteousness, heard a cry of desolation. Thus ends the reading of the Word. You know, I love music. You all know I love music. And but you know, there are genres of music now that I don't even know what they are. I don't know about any of the rest of you, but I mean, I like classical music. I like classical music, and I like jazz. And I know there are different flavors of jazz. There's contemporary jazz, and classical jazz, and avant-garde jazz. I don't like that much. And then there's rock and roll. But there are different flavors of rock and roll. There's heavy metal, and there's punk, and there's acid rock. None of you know about that. And then there's R&B, rhythm and blues music, and there's reggae music. There's swing music. I love swing music. And there's gospel music and country music. And, oh my goodness, there's so many different kinds of music. But one of my most favorite kinds of music is that music I kind of grew up on in those formative years, in those years when I was just beginning to understand how to put a needle to a record. One of the very first albums I ever received was an album by the Kingston Trio. It was folk music. Now, I knew about folk music as a kid in grade school. We sang those funky little folk songs in grade school. It was, you know, Little Brown Jug and Shoe Fly and Bobby. You remember those, don't you? Yeah. But this folk music of the Kingston Trio just got me going, like three jolly coachmen sat in the car. Okay. One of my favorites, one of my real favorites, which some might not consider folk music, was Scotch and Soda. Money, you're right. No, mine, I was 12. There was another song that they sang on one of their first albums called Down by the Mission San Miguel is a great house where dwells no colors and country. Very sexy song. I only just realized what the song meant today. I went, oh, that's right. planted the vineyard, and everybody's going, isn't that lovely? But my beloved becomes who? My beloved becomes
God.
Up above. And now I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. And you don't quite know yet. But when the beloved says, I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. Who is the beloved of the vineyard? God. God is the beloved. And Isaiah stands there in this harvest festival. I want you to picture him like one of those medieval minstrels. Oh, no, that's the Mikado. Anyway, a medieval minstrel, you know, singing his folk song. A former day Bob Dylan, a former day Dave Gard or Bob Shane or Nick Reynolds, a former day Pete Seeger. And he is standing at the Harvest Festival singing this folk song, an inviting folk song, but that reveals something to the people about themselves and turns their world upside down. How many of you know who Pete Seeger is? The father of folk music, essentially. He hung out with Woody Guthrie. Now, how many of you knew that Pete Seeger was a World War II veteran? Oh, yeah. How many of you knew that Pete Seeger was blacklisted? Pete Seeger wrote music in 1955. The music, one of the songs that he wrote in 1955 had 3 little verses. And verses were added to it a little later on by a camp counselor who took the song up to camp and said, I'm going to add a couple of verses to this. But does anybody remember what 1955 was all about? In 1953, the Korean conflict was over. So 1950 to 1956, does anybody know what was going on?
But scared.
The McCarthy era. Yeah, the House Un-American Activities Commission was very active. Pete Seeger had written a couple of songs. One of them was, This land is your land, this land is my land, from the Gulf Sea waters to the New York Island. This land is your land, this land is my land. When he worked with the Weavers, people didn't like him because he was a political leftist in their idea. You know, he was one of the pinko commie leftists who needed to be, during the Second Red Scare, blacklisted and kept away from the people. One of the other songs that he wrote was, Where have all the flowers gone? Long time have I seen. Where have all the flowers gone? Long time ago. Now there are people who thought that that song was a song written against Vietnam, but it was written in 1955. Vietnam wasn't even on the table. It was a song that was literally written about, in response to a book he had read about people who were suffering in Russia. When he wrote that song, he was talking about what happens when we don't pay attention to our world, when we don't pay attention to the vineyard in which we have been planted. The 2 verses that were added by the young camp counselor were, Where have all the husbands gone? Long time passing. Do you remember what they did? They've gone to soldiers, everyone. When will they ever learn? And then, where have all the soldiers gone? Long time passing. Where have all the soldiers gone? Long time ago. invited us to sing were just like Isaiah's folk song, saying you have to think about who you are. You have to think about how you are called to be a part of this vineyard. You can't isolate yourself. You can't remove yourself. You can't say those who perpetuate injustice have nothing to do with me. You cannot say that those who are corrupt and who prey upon the little people, those who are corrupt and who want to live in luxury and ignore the rest of humankind, that is not who we are. That is what Isaiah is trying to tell the Israelites. You cannot ignore unrighteousness. You cannot ignore bloodshed. You cannot ignore it. You must be part of the solution to make your society a just society. And if you won't do that, then you can't have the vineyard. Now I have to tell you, I had two themes. It's not just Isaiah singing the song, but it's Isaiah trying to help these folks understand what it means to be those who are in the vineyard. How many of you are vineyards? Oh, how many of you plant vineyards on a regular basis? Okay, so I'm going to educate you. You don't just take a handful of seeds and throw them in the ground if you're going to plant a vineyard. You must have a vine. You must have a piece of a vine. And that piece of the vine has roots on it. That piece of the vine has been taken from something else. That piece of the vine has been detached from its source, and it has on it roots that are ready to be planted in the ground. I think that's why the vineyard image is so important in Scripture, that we have been those who are part of the source, and the source is God. We are part of the vine that is God. God created us as a connection to God. And we have the roots, and we have the branches, and we have all that usness that is connected to God. And God took us and planted us in this soil that He had prepared, in this perfect place that He had prepared for us, and said, I will put this part of me in the ground. And I know, because I have prepared this place for them, that what will come up will be something wonderful. And Isaiah invited them to listen to this song with the expectation that they would be told that they were wonderful. Instead, he zapped them right between the eyes and said, you haven't grown up to be good grapes. You've grown up to be wild grapes. You've grown up to not